Good morning. Well, today is Wednesday. Today we are learning the third and final Perek of Maseches Orlah, and we have four Perakim left. And the Seder, which is Bikur, which is going to start tomorrow. Rich Hashem, we're going to do two Perakim on Sunday to make up one Perek for Erev Sukkot that we missed. And the Siyam will be in my house on Sunday around noonish, noon, 12:30 around there. If anyone wants to come, please reach out to me privately and I'll give you my address. Rich Hashem. We look forward to celebrating together on Sunday morning at the Siyam on Seder's Run. And start Seder Moed on Monday morning, Rich Hashem. Hope to have an update on that later on today when I finalize some arrangements, but hopefully there'll be some big news to share. Today's share is sponsored by Nishmas Aaron Nachum and Simcha Cohen, Yeshua Mordechai ben Shepsel, Bracha Sar B'Shmuel Leib, and Binah Moshe ben Yosef. May the Shemas all have an aliyah. And as mentioned, this week's, for the first week of Chodesh Kislev, is sponsored by the New York State Chaplain Group. We thank you for your sponsorship and all that you do for the chaplains in New York. Mishnah Perek Gimel Mishnah Aleph of Orlah Begich. The first half of this chapter is going to discuss cases in which Orlah was used to manufacture some other items. Now we know that Orlah is forbidden to eat. It's also usher to have any benefit from. So, what are we going to do if when someone uses the Orlah for other uses? So let's go. Baggage it's silver but kilfe Orlah. If a garment was dyed with coloring made from the peels of the other fruits, Yedalik, it must be burned because that's the benefit. Because that garment got a benefit from Orlah, and therefore is usher. Nothing to talk about. This now, if that Orlah dyed garment became mixed up with other garments, and you cannot tell which ones. Let's see, you have a batch of these color sweaters, these burnt orange sweaters, and and there's one that was made with an Orlah dye, and another box or a case or a warehouse, and then they're made of a regular. Kulam hidaleku, they must all be burned. That none will have any benefit from the prohibited garment. You got to burn the whole thing. This is according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir holds that they do not become bottles. Even if you have 1,000 of these sweaters, 10,000 of these sweaters, the oil is not bottle, and they all have to be burnt and destroyed. The Chachamim say Yaleb Echad Umasayim. The usher garment is bottled in a mixture 200 to 1, and if it's 200 to 1, then you can pick out one. If it's 200 to 1, it's bottled, and if it's less than 200 to 1, you have to burn the whole thing. Mishnah Beis Hatzoveya Melo Hasit Bekilpe Orla. If someone dyes a thread the length of a sit with coloring made from the peels of Orla. So a sit is the space between the index finger and the middle finger when they're spread as far apart as possible. This is called the sit. Okay. So if you dye the thread the length of a sit with color made from the Orla peels, for argue the beged, and he wove it into a garment. And you do it ezahu. You don't know which thread it was. If if you could identify the thread, then it could be easily removed. But if you can't identify it, it's lost amongst the whole batch. So Divrei Meir Omer says the whole garment has to be burned because you be deriving benefit from the Orlah. The Chachamim say that the thread is nullified in a mixture of 200 to 1, and if there's more than 200 mutter threads in that garment, then the Orlah dyed thread becomes bottle, and the garment may be worn. If not, then it has to be destroyed. Mishnah Gimel. Oreg malah sit mitzemer habachor babeged. If someone weaves into a garment a thread the length of a sit that was made from the usher wool of a bechor. Now, a bechor, which is the firstborn male calf, sheep, or goat, is mekudesh from birth. It's given to a kohen who brings it as a korban and eats its meat. If it's blemished and cannot be brought as a korban, then the kohen may slaughter it and eat the meat, but he may not cut off its wool. Even the wool of a blemished bechor is forbidden for use. So you can eat the meat, but you can't use the wool. So Yidalik HaBeged. So that garment must be burned because the thread does not become batal, since usher to benefit from the wool of a bechor, and then the garment is usher. Similarly, if someone weaves the length of a sit of the hair that was shaved off the nazir, that hair is also for use, or the forbidden hair of a firstborn male donkey, which was put into a sack. He wove it into a sack. Yidalik hasak, then the sack must be burned because the hair does not become batal, and it's also for use. Oh, mekudashim, and if the forbidden threads woven into a garment from animals that were sanctified, I mean, they're designated as karbanos. Mekashin kol shehen, then they prohibit the garment in any amount, even less than a sit. Because of the special holiness of karbanos, the Chachamim were particularly strict with them and did not allow even the smallest part of them to be nullified, become batal. Okay, Mishnah Dalet. Tafshil shebishlu beklipe orla idalik. A food that was cooked on a fire made from the shells of orla must be burned. Since the food had been improved through the orla shells, the making use of the food is considered benefiting from orla. This if that food became mixed with others, it is nullified in a mixture of 200 to 1, and that would become batal. Mishnah Hey. Tanar shehisikua bikilpi or level alpha bo esapas. So now I'm going to talk about bread that was baked using a fire that was fueled by Orlah. So if an oven was heated with a fire that was made from the shells of Orlah, and then he baked bread in it, Tadalik kapas, and the bread must be burned. Since the bread came into being through the Orlah, the using the bread is considered benefiting from Orlah. This arva be'achirus tala be'echad masayim. If this bread became mixed with others, it is batal in a mixture of 200 to 1, like we said, for everything else. Okay, and Mishnah Vav. We're almost done. The short Perek, the only 9 Mishnahs. Yesterday we had a Perek of 17 Mishnahs. That was kind of long. Mishnah Vav. Mi shahayu lo chavili tiltan shokilei hakerem hidalku. If someone has bundles of fenugreek that were forbidden as klei hakerem, they must be burnt. If any of those bundles became mixed with other bundles of fenugreek, kulam hidalku, they must all be burned, even if there were 200 or more bundles of permitted fenugreek. This is according to the mayor. he says that a bundle of fenugreek is something so significant that according to him, and therefore they cannot become bottle. Chachamim say yalu be'echad chamasayim, they become bottle in a mixture of 200 to 1. They're being consistent with all the other Mishnahs we had so far. Mishnah Zayin, Shahaya Rabbi Meir Omer. Rabbi Meir would say, for this Mishnah is now explaining the basis of the machlokus that the Rabbi Meir had with the Chacham in the previous Mishnah. So Rabbi Meir would say, Esh Shadar Kalimnas Mekadesh, something that is usually counted, but it is sold and not really estimated. It answers the mixture into which it falls. The Chachamim say, "Ein lekadish el shish dram bilvad." Now, the Chachamim argue with him, and it's the only 6 items prohibit the mixture into which they fall without becoming bottled. Rabbi Akiva says, "Shivan." He says there's 7 items. So what are these 6 items that are referred to by the Chachamim? What's the 7th one according to Rabbi Akiva? The Elohim. These are the 6 items. Aguze Perek, the walnuts of Perek, Moni Badan, the pomegranates of Badan. Those were names of places. Perek and Badan were towns. The Chaviyos Sumos, steel barrels of wine. The Chufos Tardin, leaves of beets. The leaves are the long stalks that grow out of the beet roots. Those leaves and stalks are used for food sometimes. The kilsei kruv, stalks of cabbage, with the last Sifanis and the Greek gourd. And Rikiva adds on one more. He says, Af kikaros of also the loaves of a householder. Because those homemade loaves are generally larger than the baker's loaves, and they are not bottle. So okay, the Orlah, the ones in this list that were fit to be Orlah were usher as Orlah, the Klei Karim. The ones that were fit to be Klei Karim were usher as Klei Karim. Right. So the 7 items mentioned in this Mishnah were of special significance in Eretz Yisrael at the times of the Mishnah, and items of equal importance from other places or times are similarly not subject to nullification. Probably most of these things are not negib bismanazeh, but in times of the Mishnah they were considered very important. Therefore, they're listed here. Okay, Mishnah Ches, 2 more to go. The Ketzas, how so? Under what conditions do these items not become bottle? So when they're whole. This Nispatsu goes in. If the walnuts were cracked open, Nispartu harimonim, or the pomegranates were split. Nispaschu achavios, and the barrels of wine were opened. Nischatchu adaluim, the gourds were cut. Nisparsu kikaros, or the loaves were broken. Yalu be'echad masayim, they can become nullified in a mixture of 201 to 1 parts, and they do not have the significance that mentioned in the previous Mishnah because they're not in the same form. Mishnah test, the final Mishnah of this Masechta, Safik Orlah, when there's a suffix as to whether the fruit is Orlah or not. Eretz Yisrael Aser. So if the fruit grew in Eretz Yisrael, then it is Aser. Since in Eretz Yisrael the Orlah is a chiyuv d'oraisa, it's d'oraisa. Therefore, we go to Chumrah. With Syria, the fruit grew in Syria, which is only chayv, which the chiyuv of Orlah is only the Rabbanan. Then you go to Kula. B'chutz la'aretz yored l'keach. And outside Israel, meaning outside Israel and outside Syria, a Jew can go down to the field that has both Orlah and non-Orlah trees and buy the fruit that was already picked by a non-Jew. As long as he does not actually see the non-Jew gathering the fruit from the trees, then it's not an issue. But if you see him pick the fruit, then he cannot buy it, and that's a sumra from the Rabbanan. Kerem Natu Yarok, if there's a vineyard that was planted with vegetables, causing those vegetables to become prohibited as Klei Kerem, the Yarok Nemkar Chutzlalo, and vegetables are being sold outside the vineyard, and we don't know if they came from this vineyard or from somewhere else. But Eretz Yisrael Aser. In Eretz Yisrael, these vegetables are Aser, since the Isser of Klei Kerem is Eretz Yisrael is the Raisa, and so you go to Chumrah. With Syria Mutter, but if it happens in Syria, then they're mutter, because the Isser is only their bun, and to separate their bun, and you go Lakula. Chutz Laretz you locate, and outside Eretz Yisrael, the laws are more lenient, because a Jew can ask a non-Jew to go down and gather vegetables on his behalf, even though they might be Klei Kerem, Ubevad Shlo Yokab Yad, provided that the Jew does not pick with his own hand. Chadash is prohibited by the Torah everywhere, even outside of Eretz Yisrael, because Chadash says in all of your dwellings, and that means even outside Israel. Orlah halacha, Orlah is prohibited outside of Israel by Sinai, which is considered like Torah law. The kilayim and the kilayim of the vineyard is prohibited outside Eretz Israel only as a derabanan enactment, prohibition. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Shem. Might do a little bit later tomorrow because of the day off, but we'll talk about that later. Have a wonderful day.